Welcome to the world of science fiction stories, and don't forget to share and subscribe the channel. The soft chime of the apartment door startled me as I unpacked the last of my groceries. I wasn't expecting anyone, least of all her. Standing in the doorway was my new roommate, tall and impossibly graceful, her opalescent skin shimmering faintly under the glow of the hallway lights. She wasn't human, far from it. Her people, the Idali, had only arrived on Earth 2 decades ago seeking refuge after a devastating planetary collapse. Integration efforts between humans and Iridal were still rocky, but this government-mandated roommate program was meant to foster mutual understanding. "Hello," she said softly, her voice lilting like wind chimes. "I am Zella." Her name rolled off her tongue like poetry. Her violet, almond-shaped eyes studied me with an intensity that sent a ripple of unease and fascination through my chest. "I'm Ran," I replied, setting down a jar of peanut butter that suddenly felt absurdly mundane in her presence. "Come in." Zella stepped inside, her movements fluid yet cautious, as though she were trying not to break the floor beneath her feet. A small duffel bag hung over her shoulder, but her posture spoke of exhaustion. "Your file said you came from the Northern Iridal clans," I asked, trying to fill the silence as she surveyed the living room. "Yes," she said, her gaze lingering on the bookshelf. "And you are from here?" I chuckled. "Yeah, I guess you could say that." She tilted her head slightly, the faintest trace of a smile appearing on her pale lips. It was disarming, the way her expressions were both alien and deeply human at the same time. After I showed her the small guest room, Zella hesitated at the door. "This space is generous," she murmured. I frowned. "Generous? It's pretty standard for a roommate setup. You should see some of the shoeboxes in the city." Her violet eyes flickered with what I could only describe as discomfort. "It is not common for Iridal to sleep apart from companions, even temporary ones," she stated. I froze, caught off guard by her statement. "Wait, you mean you're used to sharing rooms, beds?" she clarified simply, her tone matter-of-fact. "It is tradition," she added. I blinked, unsure if she was joking. She didn't seem like the type. "Well, that's not really how humans do things. We, like our space and privacy." She nodded but said nothing more, retreating into her room with a tired sigh. The first night passed without incident, though I caught myself thinking about her more than I expected. There was something unsettling about her presence, but not in a bad way. It was more like a constant awareness, a silent pull at the edges of my mind. By the second night, I started to notice things. Zella moved through the apartment with an almost ghostly silence, yet she was always aware of me. If I turned a corner, she'd already be glancing in my direction. If I dropped something, she'd pick it up before I even reached for it. On the third night, she appeared at my bedroom door. "Ran," she said softly, her voice tinged with something I couldn't place, pain, maybe. "I cannot sleep." I sat up, rubbing my eyes. "Is something wrong?" she hesitated, clutching the edge of the doorframe as though it were a lifeline. "The space, it's too empty, Iridal. I'm not meant to be alone." I blinked, still half asleep. Do you want to talk or something?" Her gaze dropped, and for the first time, she looked vulnerable. "No, I need warmth." I swallowed hard. "You're saying you want to sleep here?" She nodded, her silvery hair falling over one shoulder. "It is our tradition to share for comfort." I stared at her, the request so absurdly intimate that my brain short-circuited. But there was no malice in her eyes, no hidden agenda, just raw honesty. "Okay," I said finally, scooting over, "but just for tonight." She crossed the room in a single graceful motion, sliding into the bed with a kind of ease that suggested she'd done this 1,000 times before. Her presence was startlingly warm, her opalescent skin radiating a faint heat that seeped through the blanket. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Yeah, I muttered, staring at the ceiling. "No problem." I woke up to sunlight streaming through the window and the disorienting sensation of an arm draped over my chest. It took me a moment to realize it wasn't mine. Zella was curled against me, her head resting lightly on my shoulder. Her breathing was slow and steady, and for a moment I didn't dare move. Her skin shimmered faintly in the morning light, and I couldn't help but notice how delicate she looked. But there was strength there, too, a quiet resilience that made my chest ache in a way I couldn't quite explain. As if sensing my thoughts, Zella stirred. Her eyes fluttered open, and she looked up at me, her expression unreadable. "Good morning," she said, her voice soft. Morning," I replied. Neither of us moved, and the moment stretched on, filled with an unspoken tension that neither of us seemed willing to break. Finally, she sat up, brushing her hair back with a graceful hand. "Thank you," she said again, her tone earnest. "For what?" "For not refusing me." I frowned. "Why would I refuse you?" Her gaze met mine, and for the first time, I saw something raw and unguarded in her eyes. "Because I am not human." The words hit me harder than I expected. I opened my mouth to respond, but she was already on her feet, gliding toward the door. "Zalera, wait." But she was gone, leaving me alone with 1,000 unanswered questions. Over the next few days, things shifted between us. She no longer retreated to her own room, instead slipping into mine each night with a quiet determination that left no room for argument. At first it was awkward, her proximity was both comforting and disconcerting, her presence a constant reminder of how alien she truly was. But as the nights turned into weeks, something changed. I found myself looking forward to the sound of her soft footsteps in the hallway, the way her warmth seeped into the sheets beside me. She didn't talk much about her past or her people, but when she did, I listened with a fascination I couldn't quite explain. Then one night, everything changed. "Ran," she said softly, her voice trembling. I turned to face her, surprised by the emotion in her tone. "What's wrong?" I asked. She hesitated, her violet eyes searching mine. "I need to tell you something." Her words hung in the air between us, heavy with meaning, and in that moment I realized something I hadn't allowed myself to admit: this wasn't just about tradition anymore. Something deeper was happening, something neither of us fully understood, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what came next. Zella sat across from me at the small dining table, her long, elegant fingers wrapped around a cup of tea. She hadn't spoken much since last night, her violet eyes were distant, as though she were weighing something profound. I couldn't take the silence anymore, so, "This bed-sharing thing," I began awkwardly, "is it really that common in your culture?" Her gaze flicked to me, unreadable yet piercing. "Yes, for the Idali, proximity is a form of trust. To sleep beside someone is to accept their presence wholly, without fear or reservation. It is the foundation of our relationships, platonic, familial." She hesitated, her cheeks flushing with a faint iridescent glow. "Intimate?" I asked. The way I say it, intimate, sent a ripple of heat through me. I continued, clearing my throat, "But what about privacy? Doesn't everyone need their own space sometimes?" "Privacy," she said, rolling the unfamiliar word over her tongue, "is an earth concept for us. Isolation is unnatural, painful, even. It is why I struggled that first night." I frowned, guilt threading through me. I had thought her insistence on sharing a bed was strange, borderline invasive, but hearing it now, it sounded so deeply rooted in who she was. "I didn't realize it was that hard for you," I said quietly. She looked down at her tea, her voice soft. "I did not want to burden you." "Zella," I said, leaning forward, "you're not a burden." Her eyes lifted to meet mine, and for a moment the space between us felt charged, like the air before a storm. "You are kind," she murmured. "More so than I deserve." I opened my mouth to argue, but she rose from her chair before I could speak. "There is something I wish to show you," she said, her tone suddenly lighter. "If you are willing." "Show me?" I asked, curious. She nodded. A part of my culture, a tradition, it may help you understand me better. We took the bus to a park on the edge of the city, a sprawling expanse of green that felt a world away from the bustling streets. Zella led me to a quiet grove of trees, her movements purposeful yet graceful. Here, she said, stopping beneath the largest tree, its branches arched overhead like a cathedral, sunlight filtering through the leaves in dappled patterns. What are we doing here? I asked, glancing around. She knelt on the ground, patting the grass beside her. Sit. I hesitated, then joined her. The earth was cool beneath my hands. In my culture, she began, her voice low and melodic, there is a ritual we perform when we wish to form a bond with someone. It is called tanith, the sharing of hearts. I swallowed hard. Sharing hearts. She nodded, her gaze steady. It is not as literal as it sounds. It is a moment of vulnerability, where we open ourselves completely to another. No barriers, no lies. I felt a flicker of unease. That sounds intense. It is, she said simply, but it is also beautiful. Would you trust me enough to try it? I hesitated, searching her face for any hint of deception, but all I saw was sincerity. Okay, I said finally. What do I have to do? Close your eyes. I did as she asked. Breathe with me, she said softly, her voice like a tether grounding me as I matched her slow, deliberate breaths. For a moment, it was just the two of us, the world falling away until nothing else existed. And then I felt it, a warmth blossomed in my chest, spreading outward like the first rays of dawn. It wasn't physical, it was something deeper, a pulse of emotion that wasn't entirely my own. Do you feel it? Zella whispered. Yes, I said, my voice barely audible. It is me, she said simply. My essence, my heart. I opened my eyes, startled by the intensity of her words. You can feel what I'm feeling, she asked. I nodded, overwhelmed by the sheer intimacy of it. There was no hiding here, no pretense, just raw, unfiltered emotion. You're scared, she said softly. I nodded, unable to deny it. This is a lot. Her hand reached out, resting lightly on mine. You do not have to understand it all at once, but know this, Ran, you are not alone. Her words hit me like a wave, breaking down walls I hadn't even realized were there. I think I needed to hear that, I admitted. She smiled again, her eyes shining with something I could only describe as hope. That night, as we lay in bed, the atmosphere between us felt different, not heavier, exactly, but more significant. Ran, she said softly, her voice barely audible in the dark, there is something I must tell you. Her tone was hesitant. I turned to face her, my heart skipping a beat. What is it? She hesitated, her violet eyes shimmering like twin galaxies. I came here to escape, not just my planet, but expectations. My people have traditions, obligations that I could not fulfill. What kind of obligations? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Her gaze dropped. To bond, to choose a mate. My heart pounded in my chest. Oh, I was not ready, she continued, her words spilling out like a confession. I wanted more time, but now. She looked up at me, her expression unreadable. I do not know if I can run from it forever. The weight of her words settled over me, and for a moment I didn't know what to say. Zella, I said finally, my voice steady, you don't have to run anymore. Whatever happens, we'll face it together. Her eyes softened, a tear slipped down her cheek. You are unlike anyone I have ever met, I murmured as I reached out, brushing the tear away with my thumb. You're nothing like I expected, but maybe that's a good thing. She smiled a genuine, radiant smile that made my chest ache. In that moment, I realized something I hadn't been willing to admit before, this wasn't just about tradition or obligation anymore, it was about her. And for the first time in years, I didn't feel alone. The nights became our sanctuary as the world outside moved on, oblivious to the delicate connection forming between us. Zella and I built something fragile yet undeniable. In the quiet hours after the sun had set, sharing a bed no longer felt strange, it had become a natural rhythm, a language unspoken. But this night was different. Zella shifted beside me, her breathing uneven. I could feel her warmth, her steady pulse against the silence of the room. She hadn't said much during dinner, and now, even in the dark, I could sense the tension radiating from her. "Zella," I whispered, breaking the stillness, "are you okay?" Her voice, when it came, was faint, barely audible. "It's nothing," she insisted. "That's a lie," I said softly, turning onto my side to face her. "You've been quiet all day. What's going on?" She hesitated, the faint shimmer of her opalescent skin catching the moonlight. "It is not something you need to worry about." "That's not how this works," I said gently. "You can't just shut me out." She turned her head, her violet eyes meeting mine. There was something raw in her gaze, a vulnerability that made my chest tighten. "I am in pain," she admitted finally, her voice trembling. I sat up immediately. "Pain? What kind of pain? Are you sick?" "No," she said quickly, her hand reaching out to touch my arm. "Not in the way you mean." I frowned, trying to piece together her meaning. "Then what is it?" I asked. She looked away, her cheeks glowing faintly with embarrassment. "It is difficult to explain." "Try me," I said softly, my voice steady. For the irital connection is not just a choice, it is a need. Proximity eases the mind, but it is not always enough. There is a deep, bond that forms when two beings truly share themselves with one another. Without it, we begin to wither, emotionally and physically. Her words hit me like a freight train. "Wait, are you saying you're withering?" I asked. She nodded, her gaze dropping. "It has been building for some time. I thought I could endure it, but it is becoming harder to ignore." A surge of protectiveness rose in me, fierce and unrelenting. "Zalera, why didn't you tell me sooner?" "If you're suffering, I did not want to pressure you," I said. She interrupted, her voice firm despite the tremor in it. "I did not want you to feel obligated to bond with me," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The words hung between us, heavy and undeniable. I stared at her, my mind racing. Bonding, she wasn't just talking about sharing a bed or comforting proximity. This was something deeper, more intimate. "Zella," I said carefully, "what does bonding mean for your people?" She looked at me, her violet eyes shimmering with unspoken emotion. "It is everything. To bond is to share not just space, but essence, to open one's heart entirely, without barriers. It is not something we take lightly." "And you want that with me?" I asked, my voice barely audible. Her gaze held mine steadily and unflinchingly. "Yes." The weight of her admission settled over me like a tidal wave. Part of me wanted to run, to put up walls and protect myself from the enormity of what she was asking, but another, quieter, deeper part felt something else. It wasn't fear, it was longing. I didn't sleep much that night. Zella lay beside me, her breathing slow and even, but my mind was anything but calm. Her words echoed in my head, intertwining with memories of her presence, the way she moved through the apartment with quiet grace, the way her voice could soothe or challenge me in equal measure. The truth was, I'd been drawn to her from the start, I just hadn't let myself admit it. By morning, I'd made my decision. "Zella," I said, finding her in the living room, where she was sitting cross-legged on the couch, her silvery hair cascading over her shoulders. She looked up at me, her expression cautious. "Yes, I've been thinking about what you said," she began, her voice steady despite the storm inside me, "about bonding." Her posture stiffened slightly, but she said nothing more. "I want to understand," I continued. "I want to know what it means for you, for us." Her eyes softened, a flicker of hope breaking through her guarded expression. You do not have to, she began, but I interrupted, taking a step closer. I want to. This isn't just about you, I feel it too, Zella. This connection between us is real, and I don't want to ignore it anymore. Her breath caught. Her violet eyes searched mine. Are you certain? She asked. I nodded. I've never been more certain of anything. She rose from the couch, her movements fluid and deliberate. Then there is something I must show you, she said softly, but it is not without risk. I frowned. Risk? What kind of risk? She hesitated, clasping her hands together. If the bond is not true, if there is doubt or fear, it can harm us both. Idolly bonds require trust, absolute trust. I swallowed hard. And if it is true? Her lips curved into a faint, wistful smile. Then it will be unlike anything you have ever known. Zella led me to her room, the space bathed in soft, ethereal light from the crystal-like orb she had placed on the shelves. The air felt charged, heavy with anticipation. Sit, she instructed, gesturing to the floor. I obeyed, my heart pounding in my chest as she knelt before me. Close your eyes, she said softly. I did as she asked. The familiar sensation of her presence washed over me. Now, she said, her voice a soothing melody, let go of everything you are holding on to, fear, doubt. Let it all fall away. It wasn't easy, but I tried. I focused on her voice, on the warmth radiating from her. Slowly, the tension in my body began to ease. And then it happened, a surge of energy, unlike anything I'd ever felt, enveloped me. It was warm and radiant, a tidal wave of emotion that was both hers and mine. I could feel her hopes, her fears, her longing, all laid bare before me. Ran, she whispered, her voice trembling, do you feel it? Yes, I said, my voice thick with emotion. I feel you. She exhaled shakily, her hands reaching out to rest lightly on mine. This is the beginning, she said softly, the beginning of us. And in that moment, I knew there was no turning back. When I opened my eyes, I was met with Zella's gaze, her violet eyes glowing faintly in the soft light of her room. Her hands were still on mine, warm and steady, as if tethering me to her in this newfound connection. What happens now? I asked, my voice quiet, almost reverent. She smiled, a small, tender curve of her lips that made my chest tighten. Now, we learn each other truly. What does that mean? I pressed, feeling the echo of her emotions faintly mingling with my own. For the Idolly, bonding is not just an act, she explained. It is a journey, a process of aligning two souls so they may move together in harmony. It takes time, effort, and vulnerability. Sounds intense, I said, trying to keep my voice light. It is, she admitted, her tone unflinching, but it is also the most beautiful thing we can experience. It is what makes us whole. I took a deep breath, letting her words sink in. So, where do we start? I asked. With honesty, she said simply. The days that followed were unlike anything I'd ever experienced. Zella and I spent hours talking, peeling back the layers of ourselves in a way that felt raw but liberating. She told me about her home world, about the sprawling, crystalline cities and the sky that shimmered with a spectrum of colors unlike anything on Earth. She also told me about the pressure she'd faced, how her family had expected her to bond with someone of high standing, to carry on their lineage in the way tradition demanded. I couldn't do it, she confessed one evening as we sat on the balcony, the city lights twinkling below. I didn't want to bond out of duty, I wanted it to mean something. Her words struck a chord in me. I get that, I said, my gaze distant. My parents always had this idea of what my life should look like, college, a stable job, a family, but I never fit into their mold. She tilted her head, studying me with a gentle curiosity. And how did that make you feel? I admitted. Lost, she said softly, like I wasn't enough. Her hand brushed mine, a light, grounding touch. You are enough, Ran. More than enough, she said simply. Her words carried a weight that made my throat tighten. As the bond deepened, I began to notice subtle changes in myself. My emotions felt sharper, more vivid, as if Zella's presence had unlocked something dormant within me. But it wasn't just me, Zella, too, seemed different. The pain she'd carried, the quiet, unseen struggle, seemed to ease, replaced by a quiet strength. Her laughter came more easily, her smiles were brighter and more frequent. One night, as we lay side by side in bed, I couldn't help but ask, do you feel it too, this change? She turned to me, her expression soft. Yes, the bond is a living thing. It grows and evolves just as we do, and with each passing day, it strengthens. It's strange, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I thought I'd feel scared, vulnerable, but instead I feel whole. She finished, her gaze steady. I nodded, the word fitting perfectly. Yet not everything was as simple as the connection between us. As the bond grew stronger, I began to notice the way others looked at us, curious, sometimes wary. Humanity had grown accustomed to alien visitors over the years, but the sight of an iridal sharing such an obvious closeness with a human still drew attention. One afternoon, while Zella and I were walking through the park, a group of teenagers stopped to stare. Hey, one of them called out, his tone half joking but laced with a hint of malice, is she your girlfriend or your pet? I froze, the words hitting me like a slap. Zella's hand tightened around mine, her posture stiffening. Let's keep walking, she murmured, her voice calm but firm. I hesitated, anger bubbling up inside me, but her grip on my hand was steady, a silent plea to let it go. As we walked away, I couldn't stop the flood of frustration. Why do people have to be like that? I muttered. It is not their fault, she said softly. Not their fault. I said incredulously. They're being jerks, Zella. She stopped and turned to face me. Humans fear what they do not understand. It is no different among my people, ignorance breeds cruelty, she said. Her words cooled my anger, but they didn't erase it. Still, I muttered, it's not right. No, she agreed gently, but we cannot let their ignorance define us. Her calm strength in the face of such hostility only made me admire her more. That night, as we lay in bed, I found myself staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the encounter. Really, Zella, she said softly, her voice pulling me from my thoughts. Yeah, she hesitated, her hand brushing mine beneath the covers. Do you regret this, us? Her question hit me like a punch to the gut. I turned to face her, my voice firm. No. Never. Her violet eyes searched mine, as if looking for the truth in my words. Even if it is difficult. I reached out, brushing a strand of silvery hair from her face. Nothing worth having is easy, Zella. And you're worth everything, I said. Her breath hitched, her eyes shimmered with unshed tears. You are remarkable, Ran, she whispered. So are you, I said softly. For a moment, we simply looked at each other, the silence filled with unspoken emotion. Then slowly, she leaned closer, her forehead resting gently against mine. In that quiet, intimate moment, I felt the bond between us solidify, woven together in a way that was both profound and unbreakable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we would face them together. The morning after our quiet moment of closeness, the world seemed sharper, brighter, as though some unseen veil had been lifted. Every glance Zella gave me carried a weight that hadn't been there before, as if she could see into the very core of who I was. And in truth, I felt I could see her just as clearly. The bond had changed us both, deepening not only our connection but our understanding of each other. But with this new depth came an unspoken tension. What is it? I asked one afternoon, finding Zella standing by the window, her silhouette framed by the soft sunlight. She didn't look at me immediately. Her gaze was distant. The council, she said finally. What about them? They will soon request an evaluation of my time here, she explained, turning to face me. Part of the agreement for my presence on Earth includes regular reports on my progress. I frowned, stepping closer. Progress? What kind of progress are they looking for? Her lips pressed into a thin line, her hands clasping in front of her. They will want to know if the bond has succeeded. My stomach tightened. Succeeded? How? She hesitated, her violet eyes searching mine. If it is strong, if it is true, if it is worth allowing me to stay. The implication hit me like a blow. Wait, are you saying they could make you leave? Yes, she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. If they deem the bond insufficient, they will recall me to Irala. I stared at her, the weight of her words sinking in. The thought of her leaving, of this bond being severed, was like a physical ache in my chest. That's not going to happen, I said firmly. Her gaze softened, a flicker of hope in her eyes. You cannot control their decision, Ran. No, I said, stepping closer, but I can make sure they see the truth of what we have. It's real, Zella, and no one can take that from us. She exhaled shakily, her hands reaching out to grasp mine. I hope you are right. In the weeks leading up to the Council's evaluation, Zella and I worked to strengthen our bond further. It wasn't about proving anything to anyone, it was about ensuring that what we had was unshakable, no matter what outside forces tried to interfere. One night, as we lay in bed, Zella turned to me, her expression thoughtful. There is something I wish to show you, she said. Okay, I said, intrigued. What is it? It is a memory, she explained. A part of the Irid bond allows us to share pieces of ourselves, moments that have shaped who we are. I blinked in surprise. You can do that? She nodded, her gaze steady. Would you like to see? Yes, I said without hesitation. She placed her hands on either side of my face, her touch warm and steady. Close your eyes, she instructed. I obeyed, and a moment later, I felt a rush of sensation, light, sound, and emotion, all swirling together in a vivid tapestry. I was standing in a vast, crystalline meadow, the air shimmering with iridescent light. The sky above was a kaleidoscope of shifting colors, and in the distance, a city of gleaming spires rose against the horizon. This is Idala, Zella's voice said, though I couldn't see her, my home. The scene shifted, and suddenly I was in a grand hall, the walls adorned with intricate carvings that seemed to glow faintly. A group of Idali stood before me, their expressions stern and unyielding. Zalera, one of them said, his tone heavy with disapproval, you must understand the importance of tradition. Bonding is not a choice, it is a duty. I understand, Zella's voice replied, though it trembled with emotion. But I cannot bond with someone I do not love. The memory dissolved, replaced by a quieter moment. Zella sat alone on a balcony, her face turned to the shimmering sky. There was a sadness in her expression, a longing that pierced me to the core. I left Idala because I could not conform to their expectations, Zella said softly. I wanted something more. The memory faded, and I opened my eyes to find her watching me, her gaze filled with vulnerability. Now you understand, she said, her voice barely audible. I do, I said, my heart aching for her. And I promise, Zella, I'll never let you feel that kind of loneliness again. Her eyes shimmered with unshed tears as she leaned forward, her forehead resting against mine. In that moment, I felt the bond between us pulse with a quiet, unshakable strength. When the day of the Council's evaluation arrived, I was ready. Zella had set up a video call with the Idali representatives, and as their holographic images appeared in our living room, I felt a surge of determination. Zalera, one of them said in a formal tone, you have been on Earth for several months now. We are here to assess the success of your mission. Zella inclined her head. I understand. And who is this? Another representative asked, his gaze turning to me. This is Ran, Zella said, her voice steady. He is my bonded partner. The representatives exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable. Human bonding is unconventional, one of them said carefully. What makes you believe this bond is sufficient? Zella hesitated, and I saw a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. Taking a deep breath, I stepped forward. Because it's real, I said firmly. The representatives turned their attention to me, their gaze sharp. You speak with conviction, one of them said, but words are not enough. Can you prove the strength of your bond? I glanced at Zella, who gave me a small, encouraging nod. Closing my eyes, I focused on the bond, letting it guide me. A surge of warmth and emotion filled me, and when I opened my eyes, I saw the faint glow of energy surrounding us, an unmistakable sign of the connection we shared. The representatives' expressions shifted, their skepticism melting into something resembling awe. It seems, one of them said slowly, that the bond is indeed genuine. Zella exhaled a shaky breath, her hand slipping into mine. You have our approval to remain on Earth, the representative continued. May your bond continue to grow and flourish. As their holographic images disappeared, I turned to Zella, a grin breaking across my face. We did it, I said, pulling her into a tight embrace. She laughed softly, her arms wrapping around me. No, Ran, we did it. The day after the council's approval felt like stepping into a new chapter of our lives. With the looming threat of Zella's recall gone, the bond between us deepened in ways I hadn't thought possible. The connection was no longer just a thread between two individuals, it was a symphony of shared emotions, a living entity that enriched every moment we spent together.